let's dissect the reasons for The Rock in this whole thing and how I think these people are viewing this. Brian, because think about it. You've got Ari Emanuel, big time Hollywood muckety muck, Nick Khan, childhood friend of The Rock, right? They go way back.
Robust friend, yeah.
All of the big executives that they either have got in this new company conglomerate TKO or that they have inherited from the UFC, they're used to making the biggest match. In the fight game, it's about making the biggest fight, the star power, right? And I can see where no matter how popular Cody is for these people who may not be yet tuned into the dedicated, the most loyal WWE audience, just looking at it from being promoters and dealing with celebrities. Here's The Rock. He's a fucking movie star. You can't deny it. He's been in more movies than Cody has.
Yes, he has.
They just gave him $30 million to be on the board of directors, and this is at a period of time where the company, even their new company, because of the previous administration, has never looked worse because of all the shit about Vince and Laurinaitis and whatever. And The Rock to the general public is a very popular son of a bitch. And he's on the board of directors. And they want him to have not only as his standing as the biggest star in the recent history of wrestling, but also his celebrity and his notoriety, but in a positive fashion. How can that be bad, right? This is fucking great. This is what they're thinking. And the stories are now that The Rock, you say politicked, I mean, pitched the idea, came up with this. Think about this. They thought they had Seth and Rollins.
They certainly did.
Well, they had both of them. They thought they had Seth and Punk and Cody and Roman and Brock Lesnar on the card, and all of a sudden, Rollins is hurt and Punk is out, and Brock is persona non grata, can't be used. So The Rock goes in and says, well, I got the answer. I'll come back. And you know what? You can't blame not only him for pitching it, but also because he wants to be as valuable to these people as possible because they just paid him $30 million and he's got a big time spot. And he's, as we'll talk about in a minute, he's got a good chance maybe of running this son of a bitch one of these days. And he said, well, I'll come in and save the day and we'll have this long-awaited match. And, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they've come up with however they're going to get out of it and whatever idea they've got from there. And that's... The UFC as a precedent is more like the pioneer days of wrestling, not in terms of it being a work, but in terms of the way that it was presented and promoted to the people. They didn't do angles before television. They didn't do promos before television. To the public, wrestling, even when it was a work, was still presented as, you know, this guy's trying to build his winning streak to challenge the world champion. And, oh, boy, there's bad blood between these two guys because of the last match they had. Now they got a rematch. I mean, it was fairly bad. And that's the same thing, as we've talked about, you get with the UFC. The guys on top, the Conor McGregors, every once in a while, the gimmick attractions like the Diaz brothers, whatever, they get away with doing a little more trash talking and a little more promotion, but the angles are much simpler. Nobody's running over anybody with a golf cart in a fucking UFC, right? And they book big name fighters against each other in big pay-per-view main events. So that's what Nick Khan and whoever that side of things in the TKO administration probably thinks they've done. They've booked the biggest name possible in the wrestling business to be in the main event of their biggest show. What they didn't probably expect, and because I don't think it happens this way in Hollywood, and it is the fans don't usually hijack the UFC events, But the most dedicated audience for the WWE and the ones that have driven this turnaround and powered their business here lately is both anti-Vince and pro-Cody. Because they want to see the story finish. You can't do that in the UFC because you can't. There's that pesky little thing about we don't really know who's going to win the fucking fight when we book it. But the wrestling fans now, they know this is different. And even if they like the goddamn Rock, it's a different fucking movie. They want to see the end of this movie first. So I can see both sides, and I can also see the Rock, obviously for self-serving purposes, wanting to go in there. Because think about this, the fucking grandson of Peter Maivia, the son of Rocky Soulman Johnson, could end up not only being at one point the biggest star in Hollywood, but also running the goddamn WWF at some point in the future.
Which would be a disaster.
It might be, but that doesn't mean that he thinks it will be.
But you hit the nail on the head. The problem is, The Rock has the relationship with Nick Khan. Ari Emanuel, I'm going to guess he may not know the ins and outs of pro wrestling so well, but he knows The Rock is a star and he knows that his agency has represented him. Rock's the biggest wrestling star they can get to be a part of any of this stuff, and he needs it. He needs it more than they need it. Rock's right now not in the middle of a career resurgence or anything. His movies have been bombing. People don't want to see them. He destroyed DC. Everyone's been talking about that. I brought it up on the show a few weeks ago. Now we're seeing reports where people are saying, yeah, that's one of the reasons he's there. That's going on. His TV show, canceled, was a terrible show. The thing with him and Oprah, asking the common man to donate their money while they sat there worth a whole lot more than them, was ridiculous. It's one thing after another, after another, after another. So he comes back to wrestling when he needs it, which in a way is kind of pathetic because there are people there every single day busting their ass for that company to try to do it.
Well, but at the same time, this is not Bulldog Bob Brown booking himself in the main event in Kansas City.
No, and this isn't even Hulk Hogan showing up at the end of WrestleMania 9 and taking the title from Yokozuna after he beat Bret Hart.
It's not even Hogan in the Georgia Dome when the tickets were already sold.
No, this would be like if Hogan showed up at WrestleMania 10 in the Garden, and right before the match with Bret and Yokozuna, he took Bret's spot. That's what this would be like. And the backlash is coming because Dwayne Johnson built his career on being really fucking talented in the ring, really talented on the mic, a generational talker. If you think about that era of WWE, Steve Austin, The Rock, Vince McMahon, even The Undertaker's like a notch below that. He can't do that anymore. He doesn't have the chops. His promos have become cornier and cornier, no disrespect.
Hey!
They say now that he's going to bring Brian Gewirtz back into the fold with all this.
Well, he's got old Gerwitz there, the only guy ever to lose a slap fight to Paul Heyman.
Yeah, that's what you want. A little virgin whose material was shitty 15 years ago. He's now going to have a hand in the creative? Listen, I have not always been a big Paul Levesque fan, and we don't know how tied up he is with all this Vince stuff. Paul Levesque should be running that company right now for the creative end without any interference because he's proven he could do it. And he's doing well right now. Why fuck anything up in the middle of the hottest period ever? You know, they thought, we'll turn Austin heel and have him go McMahon. We're as hot as we can be. What could go wrong? Everything went wrong. And you're shoving The Rock in a spot that the wrestling fans who live and die with wrestling don't want him in. You're not hearing any of those fans say, yeah, this is great. None of them. No, they're invested in Cody.
Well, see, that's why I'm saying I don't think that the non-wrestling people that are now in the picture understand, because there is no parallel potentially in the UFC or probably even in Hollywood for the vehement disagreement that they will encounter from their main fan base with something like this in trying to, oh, The Rock, will we get 5 million people to watch Peacock or what? It's the fucking Rock. But it
may not. That's the other thing. Who knows if he'll draw an extra audience to Peacock for this?
Well, let's face it, it's going to look good regardless because there's more people that have Peacock, and there's going to just be more people to watch this just because it ain't going to cost them anything, and it's right there in the living room, right? It's harder to quantify anybody's contribution in the way of pay-per-view buys or whatever anymore because of, it's more accessible. But
this is bad news.
Here's the thing. Listen to me. As good a job as Triple H has been doing, and I'm not arguing with you about that. He has been, and is probably better on a day-to-day basis than The Rock could ever do because he's not been in that fucking space.
He's probably better on a day-to-day basis than Vince has been in a long time.
Well, yeah, and that's faint praise. Vince, as we found out, his mind started turning to fucking squash years ago. But they also... Triple H has got to watch out because even if he's not involved or wasn't involved or he and Stephanie have been trying to distance themselves from the other side of the family or whatever the case, again, you got Hollywood agents, deal makers, childhood friend of The Rock. He's a fucking celebrity. In Triple H's defense, he's done this job and done it well. But who are they? They may think, still, it's the fucking guy's son-in-law. Maybe we ought to just break clean. You never know what they're going to think. They probably had, as I said earlier in the program, they've had enough contact with Triple H and been there and had numerous discussions, I'm sure, to where they have a fairly good level of confidence that nothing bad is going to come out about him per se, or they wouldn't have had him in this position this long, this high. But if it comes down to a pissing contest between The Rock and Triple H, they're going to probably do what The Rock says. The Rock says, because he's the fucking Rock. And they're looking at a movie star and a celebrity, and they don't understand the intricacies and the nuances that go into some of this shit. And anything from the best players don't always make the best coaches to, he may not have the golden touch on everything anymore. But you can't deny that these people would probably put more faith in what The Rock says than even Triple H because of the different levels of notoriety.
I can't deny that. I think it's a sad fact. I think it's a sad reality. But The Rock has never shown an ability to book. The Rock's material has been incredibly lame. He's running on the fumes of what he once was. Because he comes out there with his Brian Gewirtz material and it bombs. It's lame. It's terrible. Remember Cena calling off for having crib notes on his hand?
Yes, but I never see him bomb because people are just happy to see him there. He can fart in their general direction. They're going to moderately like it.
Again, the surprise pop is a lot different than The Rock's going to be here next Monday. What's he going to say? There's a big difference there. They're doing everything they can to stack it so The Rock gets these moments. And the last thing wrestling fans want is WWE to be built around The Rock.
But that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stack these programs so everybody gets a big pop. It's just that some people have a more pull than others to have that done.
The problem is The Rock is a self-serving guy, and he's coming in here.
Oh, now, come on now. If a self-serving person, if he was just completely self-serving, they would do things like nepotism, like having their daughter become the general manager of her own brand.
That's right.
Even at the tender age of early 20-something, and the fact that she couldn't say suey if the hogs had her, or there might be a renewed push for a talent that is related to The Rock that was released months ago because there wasn't anything for her, and suddenly she's just kicking everybody's ass. Well, there'd be something like that going on if there was anything untoward with this relationship.
I have no doubt The Rock would love to run WWE and love to be the top star there, but it would be the wrong move in 100 different ways. And what happens the next time he gets a big role? He's not going to drop wrestling like he always has?
Well, wait, hold on here a second. If he just got $30 million to be on the board of directors, he's going to be in the main events of pay-per-views. He's going to if he potentially was signed on to run this company and get X amount of stock, how many movie deals are that fucking good?
Well, he announced he's doing Smashing Machine, the Mark Kerr movie. I haven't heard too many other. Again, The Rock has had a string of movies that have not done well. So I don't know what roles he currently has. but he keeps trying to get his own projects off the ground. They're all terrible. That show on HBO.
How are your movies doing?
I don't have any movies. I guarantee if I made a movie, it would be better than The Rock's. Even if it made less money, it would be a better movie because he doesn't have the sensibilities. He doesn't understand. His TV show was a bomb. The XFL's a bomb.
Wait a minute now, Tony Khan. Even if it doesn't make 15 cents in Chinese money, it'd be better. It'd be more stars.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have Dwayne Johnson in the film, but maybe that would help the film, actually, now that I think about it. No, look, the fact of the matter is I was a fan of The Rock in his day, and he was great. You go back and watch that stuff, the facial reactions, the timing, everything. Oh, yeah. He was great. I'm not taking any of that away. I'm saying this is Hulk Hogan coming back. Not even WrestleMania 10. Imagine 10 years later. Well, 15 years later.
He did come back 10 years
against The Rock, and it worked. They started cheering Hogan. But this would be like a Hulk Hogan coming back when not needed. And people saying, well, he's a big star. We got to put him in a main event. It's akin to Hulk Hogan in WCW at times.
Well, I guess the point I'm making is...
And the talent isn't happy. You see the Logan Paul tweet?
Tweet? It was a treat what he tweeted. Well, yes, and that's it. Logan Paul tweeted, #We want Cody. We love Logan Paul, and he's a great talent. I mean, he just signed a contract. I'm sure they'll honor it, but it's probably not a good idea to get sideways with the fucking biggest member of the board of directors and the biggest star in a known universe in his first week on the job.
Well, first of all, they have a history, but second of all, what's The Rock going to do? Fire him? Go ahead. That would be...
What is their history? Have they crossed paths?
Yeah, I just saw this. So apparently years ago, when Logan Paul was just a kid making stuff on social media, his brother was a star on the Disney Channel already. He got to know The Rock a little bit. The Rock appeared in a few videos with him, a few photos with him. They got along. Logan Paul, and I think he even says it was a mistake, around that time went to Japan and I guess filmed people who had committed suicide.
Oh, I heard about this story.
And it cost him a lot. It cost him a lot of his fan base. People were upset. Right around that period of time, he said that The Rock's PR person reached out and said, Dwayne wants you to remove every single thing you have up with you and him. Every photo, every video, he wants it all gone. And he thought him and Dwayne were cool. He said a few years later, when he started doing the wrestling stuff, all of a sudden Dwayne hit him up. Hey, Logan, what's going on? And he never responded. He's like, fuck this guy. And this, they got something interesting on their hands. Because if they go all the way with this and the fans reject it, it's going to be an interesting dynamic. I don't know if the fans, let's look at it another way. Do you think the fans are going to get behind Cody versus Seth? And then what do you do? Does Cody win that belt?
Well, but we already know Seth is hurt. Oh, and there's another thing, to be quite honest, that I've missed when I talked about what they could do. I didn't mention is Cody's got to win that thing, and then the only reason he won that was so that he can unify it, so he can go in against Roman at some point and unify the fucking belts. That might help also. But we know Seth is hurt. You don't want him to risk further injury to have a blowaway match, but else then it's going to be a letdown. That's why they, him and a heel that could take advantage, it would work. But this is the opposite of that. That's why my head is not on fire about it, because I'm kind of understanding what each side is thinking in this. And it's nice problems to have. Gosh, should we have The Rock on our fucking show or not? But with the locker room, yes, because their money is guaranteed. WWE's money is guaranteed. Everybody just gets paid now like they've got a fucking job. It blows my mind in the wrestling business.
And it's important to know, this may be the healthiest locker room they've ever had.
Well, yes, that's the thing, is that everybody gets the money regardless of what sells or what don't sell or pay-per-view or whatever. So now they're like, well, Cody's with us here. We love him, and he's here with us all the time, whereas The Rock is this star that comes in every so often, and we don't even know him, some of us. So they're going to be on Cody's side. If this was 40 years ago and it was the territories and you got paid on the house, they'd probably all be blowing The Rock.
Now, there are some people who think that if CM Punk hadn't gotten hurt, the road they were going with was Punk and Rollins, Cody and Roman. There are other people that think that even if Punk didn't get hurt, The Rock was still going to do this. You have any thoughts on that?
if he was, this made it easier. And also, don't forget Lesnar, because that's another thing.
Who was he going to work with? Was it him and Gunther?
I heard it was going to be him and Gunther, which would have been, just lovely for us, prick. Now he's fucked that up. Every time I want to see one of these assholes that I don't like, just because I begrudgingly admit they have talent, then they piss me off. But again, to Nick Khan, to the upper echelon, losing a star the level of Brock Lesnar and CM Punk at the same time. Seth Rollins is injured and probably not 100%. That just made it all the more easy for The Rock to come in and say, well, look, I can do my part to save this whole thing. And he probably believes that also. Because, I mean, he's The Rock.
He has self-confidence. He certainly does.
So it's, again, in years past, this would have been great problems to have. Well, we lost CM Punk, but we got The Rock or whatever. But the way that they've got themselves into this thing with the most dedicated, regular, devoted fan base, the regular viewer, they wanted Cody to finish this thing. So that's going to be, I was just going to say, it remains to be seen how vehement they're going to get about this. I don't think that it will get to the level of Danielson 10 years ago, just because times have changed. And also, The Rock is a bigger personality. He's still going to have people on his side.
If they make Cody go out there and endorse The Rock and be his little buddy, that's not going to help any of this.
Well, but I think the way that they tried to present this was Cody on an equal standing, bringing The Rock in to do something for him. If it's followed up on that way, then it helps. But and that's why I said Cody almost has to be the one to level the playing field for Rock. Because it can't be Rock doing something that everybody else has failed to do while presented with the same set of circumstances.
I don't know what the upcoming schedule is. I don't have it in front of me. But if you are going to still do Roman versus Cody, a title change, do you try to hold it at Madison Square Garden to complete the story?
Only if Madison Square Garden's a big premium live cock event.
But see, that's the issue. WrestleMania is going to be the scene. It's going to be the thousands and tens of thousands of people, the fireworks, the stadium. That's the place to do it. That's the problem people have. You don't want to see this on like some secondary pay-per-view. You want to see this story end at WrestleMania.
Well, but how secondary is SummerSlam?
It's not secondary. It's just 6 more months.
Well, they might. No, it's not. Not after WrestleMania, April,
from now,
May, June, July. It's the end of July, right? So 3.5.
I was thinking from now, but I was also thinking August. But anyway.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Do you change course? Do you? I mean, I know you can't predict what they'll do.
Yes.
If the reactions become something you can't hide, do you change course? Do you lean into it? Do you try to do anything differently? And what do you think about what I brought up earlier, the idea that Roman would defeat The Rock at WrestleMania?
Well, see, that's why I said earlier, that's a big double whammy to not give the people Roman and Cody, and then also Roman wins and beats The Rock even. Would that be an Andre moment, an Andre and Sheik? Well, oh, fuck. At this point, nobody's ever going to do it. It turns them off. And also, again, you go with a triumphant return of a fucking major star of the past. But normally, this would have been booked to where that you could get the new star to win the title and stop the undefeated streak or the defense streak or whatever, and then have the big star return for a double whammy rather than the big star comes back first.
Who does it help more, and which victory would help the company more, Cody or The Rock? Who does it help more, and what would actually, in the long run, be the best thing for the company? Rock's 51.
Well,
Cody's still in his prime.
No, Cody is definitely the long term, and it helps the company more that Cody wins the title and is the next champion than I can see than The Rock, who's who's bigger than the title, to be honest, at this point, and also has already had it multiple times, and they would be wasting Roman Reigns' streak and defenses to just have The Rock win it. But
Yeah, see, that seems counterproductive. That, to me, that seems incredibly
But champions in the past have lost non-title matches or lost falls in tag team matches, and it didn't take away the momentousness when they lost the actual belt.
This is a different situation because of the way they built up the bloodline. I mean, he's held the title for all this time. Not that many defenses like a Bruno or something, but
right.
Man of Days, the whole idea should be the first person that beats Roman Reigns gets elevated. It doesn't elevate The Rock at all.
Well, and you asked, if they start getting bad feedback, do they call an audible or do they switch directions? I can't anticipate.
Yeah, Philadelphia, how's that crowd going to react?
Well, but at the same time, they're not all from Philadelphia. Most of them aren't. It's not like
that's true. That's a good point.
Here's 50,000 fucking pissed off Philadelphians that, cheered the hunter that shot Bambi's mother. No, they've come from everywhere but Philadelphia. And so I can't imagine them giving The Rock such a bad reception at the TV tapings leading up to this and or even at WrestleMania, where the most, dedicated WWF fans are going to be. I can imagine there being boos or dueling chants or whatever, but not like we're hooting you out of the fucking building, you prick. We wish you weren't here. I can't see that with The Rock. I'm sorry.
Again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Brian Gewirtz back involved with creative because of The Rock, which would be so stupid. Nia Jax is all over this show again. His daughter, who, maybe a really nice person, but she's not an on-air character on a wrestling show.
Yeah, when we're not maligning her as a person or, saying she shouldn't do anything that makes her happy, but it's a little obvious when just suddenly, this she's been wrestling training for like a year and suddenly she's the general manager on camera of the promotion. It's George Goulas was never the commissioner, right?
No, he was too busy going to bed or picking his nose or picking his ass, whatever he did.
Go to bed, Georgie. But yeah, but that's the thing is, I'll close with this. We'll close it up until next week when more shit will be revealed and we're reevaluating our opinion of everybody. I see the TKO executives going, you know what? We've got a good relationship with Triple H, or he wouldn't have got that far, and they've obviously been pleased with his business performance, and I don't think he would have got this far without them knowing somewhat that he had somewhat of a defensible, clean bill of health. But if this gets bad enough with Vince, they may just, I would think Bruce would start, heading down to the U-Haul place to buy boxes because he was so closely aligned with Vince. Stephanie's not there anymore and doesn't look like there's any plans for her to come back. Triple H is the only one from the Vince McMahon regime and company that you would think is pretty goddamn important to stay there for the benefit of the product and the talent roster and everything else. But if TKO makes a clean break and said, we don't want any more of that Vince McMahon fucking stench on us.
How are they going to do that? Ari Emanuel had to know this stuff about Vince McMahon, and he made him the executive chairman. He was asked about it in interviews about all these things. Was he concerned?
But,
so for TKO to give someone like Triple H, just to use him as an example, a hit over this, they're going to get killed because, Dana White hit his wife on video.
Well, yeah.
He's still the head of the UFC. Vince McMahon had all sorts of allegations. They made him the executive chairman. They didn't have to buy WWE.
In Hollywood, aren't these NDAs, fairly common, but there's nothing common about the details of this thing that's come out in any industry or line of work. And I'm just thinking that they didn't have any idea that this was the story. They thought it was, Yeah, the movie producer, he's paying off the girls to whatever the fuck. But, this is, I think, has probably caught a bunch of people with their thoughts unawares.
We'll see. Ricochet has also tweeted out "We want Cody" as a hashtag.
Hey, now I'll tell you, Logan Paul may have the balls and the fucking shoe size to say what he wants, but I don't know if I was Ricochet, if I'd be pissing off the fucking Rock right now. Would you?
You know what? The last thing The Rock needs is a locker room revolt against him. And the locker room is pretty united. I mean, there's still factions and people still have issues with other people, but as I said before, maybe more than any other time in wrestling history, especially without Vince there, who always tried to create a dynamic that was tense for other people other than him. This locker room gets along.
Yeah, Vince liked having, because that was the old-fashioned way that a lot of promoters did. Vince liked having his top guys kind of at odds with each other because it made them work harder and try to get over each other, which made shows and business better. But like I said, now it doesn't matter. And the guys don't care who's on the card. They don't care what it draws because they're always getting the same amount of money.
And I killed Cody years ago when he was trying to be something he wasn't. And I killed him when his booking in AEW didn't make any sense and was counterproductive. And again, he was trying to be something he isn't. And since he returned to WWE, he has found who he is. And the fans accepted him. In AEW, the fans didn't accept him. Here they do. Not only do they accept him, his popularity has only grown. He absolutely deserves I mean, it's wrestling. He should be in the main event of WrestleMania against Roman Reigns to finish the story, to complete the booking in the right way, for a number of reasons. He deserves it, he's earned it, and he's proven himself. And it's tough for a guy just to slide back in and take all that away.
If this was an Agatha Christie novel and they're just about ready to name the killer and suddenly they introduce a new character, wouldn't it throw you fucking off?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. We didn't think about him. He was the gardener in the boathouse. What? Nobody's mentioned him in the first 240 pages. Well, he just got here.
Man, with Punk being injured, you get Cody the belt and you get him into a feud with Gunther. And it would be amazing. It would be great. But instead, it's going to be interesting too. How much is The Rock going to be on TV? Is The Rock going to be at every Raw? Is The Rock going to be at SmackDown? And how much is he going to be around before and after WrestleMania on TV? Because you can't have him beat Roman if he's not going to be around even as little as Roman's around. So that's another question. Cody's there every week.
Well, and that's why I say they get this match, but there has to be heavy involvement from Cody in a momentum-changing way or a point of making a difference in some respect to where that Cody and The Rock are presented more as Bruiser and Crusher than, fucking Andre and Mike Pappas.
I know how Cody can get the match back. The Rock comes out on Raw, gets in the ring, not quiet, but he doesn't say anything, lets the crowd get going. And then right before he's about to talk, you hear from the back, "Who told you this was open mic night, bitch?" Randy hits the ring and demands her man gets a title shot. I've come up with multiple options over the last 2 years to get Brandy on this show. And it always starts with "it's open mic night, bitch."
Yeah, I don't know if open mic night's ever coming to the WWE.
I don't think so, but it's going to be interesting how this plays out and how the fan reaction goes because, it's almost like an activist fan base nowadays. There's not a passive fan base just waiting to see what happens. They want to make what happen. They want to make things happen that they want to happen, especially when they're led to believe it's going to happen.
But think about this. If somebody a year ago had said, well, a year from now, the same company is going to own the WWE and the UFC. Vince McMahon is going to been run off in shame for fucking sexual deviances, the likes of which we haven't seen since the days of ancient Rome. And the fans are going to be pissed off because The Rock came back. What would you have said?
I would have said, I don't know. I mean, you know what? We've had so many twists and turns and surprises over just the last few months. I don't know what's going to happen next.
Okay, well, I know what's going to happen next. Your show, right?
Oh, no. Yes, the drive-thru. Next.
Yes, because this has been mine and it's over, and now yours is coming up next in a few days. Or you can, if you want to out there in podcast land, you can listen to the last podcast that was still Brian's show, just the last one we did a few days ago.